So let's not forget that. Welcome to welcome to October 2025. For some reason, I blinked and it went from January to October. Um, super fast. I guess we are sort of done with the summer and with festivals and all of that sort of good stuff. And now we're in my favorite part of the year, which is tune making season, where we spend sort of the last 3 months of the year to sort of like rush, get some releases finished, so we have something to show for in 2026. At least that's how I feel about these kind of things. I am trying to also, get some new stuff finished, and look at all my sketches that I've made over the last year, and see what gives. I feel like there needs to be some new Martin stuff happening shortly. I'm ready. I'm also ready to listen to some new music from you guys. Like I said, fall is the perfect season, I think, to just stay indoors. You're not freezing yet, but it's perfect time to just write some tunes and make them moody and dark and depressing. Like, I love all that. Today we're going to be listening, hopefully, to some of these more moody, depressing beats. I've got like a whole bunch of stuff that was uploaded to the folder. I may have to like quickly figure out who is here and who is not. There is an overflow session next week. So any tracks that I can't do today, or if someone's not here today, then I will sort of feature them next week on also on Thursday. Also, before we start, I wanted to say there is a deeper dive on Tuesday with Gene on Earth, San Francisco native but currently living in Berlin. Really looking forward to that session, which is all about world building and marketing and how to sort of create like your own sort of musical universe. I would love to see you on that session as well. I sent some Zoom invites. If you didn't get them, there's always a Zoom invite in the event section of Discord. So in case you can't find access, you can always just quickly hop on our Discord and find it there. So I just wanted to say that in advance, because sometimes Google is a bit sketchy and doesn't send emails out to everyone, and my mailing list is getting bigger and bigger, so I think that's probably the reason why. Let's listen to some tunes. Let me see. I have some stuff lined up for you. Share sound. All right. Let's get sad. All right. Take a quick look who we have. I saw. Let me see. Okay, I see Scott. I saw Jay. I saw Toph. Ollie is entering as we speak. Let me see what else. Ball is here. Okay. I thought I saw Yella. Let me see. Alban is here. Saw him. Okay. Let me take a look. Cat is also here. We have Tancredi, I saw him. Okay. I saw Brianna is here, just uploaded, right? Okay. Sorry, just quickly organizing a little bit. Who else do we have? Cassandra just uploaded. Okay, we got a bunch. Piotr was here. Did I miss someone? Let's see. Alex, where are you? Alex, which track is yours? Or did you upload one?
I believe so. I uploaded, yeah, to the Dropbox.
Let me see. Do you remember the title?
One's Dreaming.
Where am I missing?
All good. If not, I can maybe re-upload.
Don't see it.
Okay. No
Try uploading it again. We'll just start listening, and then
Sweet. Sounds good.
We'll have something.
All
Let me
right.
see. Okay, Rico. Oh yeah, Rico is also here. And that. Okay, I think we have a bunch of tracks over. I don't know if we can even manage to do all of these in one session, but we'll just get started and see where we end up. Let's maybe start with Scott, just because now he's on the top. Let's take a listen. Here we go. right. Applause of all the muted cameras. Scott, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I panicked at the start when all the songs started playing at once.
So
But we got there, it's cool.
you thought I'm a genius, and then
I was like, what,
yeah.
how did I make this?
Yes. Tell me about this particular track, because you were still working on it, I think, over the last couple of days, right?
Yeah, the first draft that I submitted, like I wasn't very confident on it, but then I listened to it the next day and it was like immediately apparent what was up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made, I refined it this morning and then submitted it this morning. Um, I feel pretty good about it, to be honest. I think the overall structure and storyline I'm happy with, but I just think that some of the sections need like refining a little bit to help keep it moving.
Yeah.
Um, so I think next I'd like to work on some of the variations in the bass line, the pad, move, put some movement in some of the dubby elements. Um, yeah, but I think the overall story is kind of in the ballpark of what I want to achieve.
Yeah,
Um,
when you say you want to add stuff or like fine tune stuff, are you talking about sort of like minor details in the track itself or in the sort of arrangement?
like a bit of both, but
Okay.
only minor stuff. So like really figuring out the transitions so that they're exactly right. And with the variations, like at this point, taking stuff away as opposed to adding more stuff, you know?
Yeah, yeah. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Um, I liked it, first of all. Um, really nice sort of storytelling, I think, especially in the first half of the track. It's pretty clear where you sort of want to go. You know, you have like a sort of intro, then this sort of big kind of bass line, Reese kind of bass line is introduced. That kind of like comes in kind of menacing and then sort of filters and sort of like becomes more angrier, I guess, more moody. So perfect for October weather. Then there is sort of a section where sort of the attention is moved towards the pads. There's like a really nice sort of weird little chord change that goes on in that section. That's kind of like here and here, right? And
Hmm.
that sort of slowly builds towards a breakdown. And then after the breakdown, it's basically sort of a repeat of what is happening before. To sort of like skip through it sort of very briefly. Oops, not
Hmm.
this one. This one. So intro. Builds up to that bass line. Then a variation of the bass line. Then you add a little bit more sort of on the percussion side, I believe. Oh, this part. So the pads come in, and then there's sort of this middle section before the breakdown. And that sort of builds towards this section. And this is basically the same as before, except now it has these sort of like floating pads on the top, right? I think um, what I think could be better is
Hmm.
maybe the development from that sort of baseline in the drop towards the breakdown. I think this section is maybe a little bit too long, or maybe it sort of develops a little bit too slow, where it kind of starts to feel like it's sort of like you're waiting to get to the breakdown almost, you know?
Yeah.
And I think when I'm sort of listening to it, I'm like, well, I think if this would develop a little bit quicker or even a bit snappier maybe, where, you know, when you sort of introduce, for example, these pads, you don't necessarily have to listen to those pads, you know, 16 bars or 32 bars. You can also do that in a much shorter way, right? Because what it's really all about is that you introduce that sound, that you can sort of show what the sort of chords are doing, but once you know that, you don't have to listen to it like over and over and over again, right? So I feel like maybe if you would sort of focus on the breakdown and sort of see how far forward you can move that, then probably this sort of development will be a little bit snappier and a bit faster. And that also gives you a little bit more space on the back end to, you know, maybe do a couple different things, right? Because the back end is basically now, like, or the second section of the track is basically just all the elements together until it's over, right? And so that could be like a little bit more of an innovative way of sort of telling the story after the breakdown, I would say. But that's only when you're not as exhausted from the part before that, right? So if you sort of keep this middle section a little bit fresher, a bit quicker, then probably you have more space on the back to sort of do some extra stuff that you're, you know, like filtering or modulation, or maybe you can do a section where there's no pads whatsoever, and the pads come back in, you know, or maybe you do like a variation on the pads. There's lots more possible there, you know. So I think that's kind of like, like a little bit more focus on the arrangement, I would say. And the second thing I was going to say is like the main groove is basically just this, right? And since you kind of like veer off with all these pads and like all kinds of different variations on percussion, sometimes it's really nice to just bring it back to that main groove again, right? To sort of wake everyone up again after the journey, and then sort of come back to this particular section, right? So, because if you, for example, play the breakdown and then go straight into that main groove without the pads, like this. And then right, it sort of like wakes everyone up again of like, hey, this was what the track was about. And then once you have that sort of established, you can sort of bring the pads back in and float away.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, got it.
What do you think?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think I have been like trapped in like a formulaic arrangement recently.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is that, and the way I'm trying to break out of it is by kind of doing the formula and then changing it after the fact, if that makes sense. So this is helpful in terms of doing that. So yeah, like before that last breakdown, I was going to do like another, like change the oscillator on the pad or something, but I was aware that it was dragging at that point as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think
cool.
like I said, like a little bit more tempo on the in the main section of the track before the breakdown, I think will help to sort of keep it fresher, you know.
Keep it pushing. Yeah.
Cool. But
okay, cool.
Great stuff, for sure.
Nice, thank you.
All right, let's move on to Toph. Toph is here. Dystopian Swagger. I like that already. Let's go have a listen. right. Toof, how are you?
I'm doing well, yeah. So to give a bit of background on the track, this is one from a few years ago that Martin, you heard it like a year ago. It was a jam that I had done on mostly on some like Volca synths, and I didn't wasn't happy with the old drums. And then last year I had pulled it back out and was like, I'm gonna redo the rhythm stuff. And by the time I was done auditioning samples, I felt like I had lost all perspective on what it sounded like. I pulled it out back out like a month ago and was like, actually, I really like the new groove. And then I sort of applied that to the rest of the track. And now I'm trying to sort of finesse aspects of the arrangement. Um, I know there are a bunch of different variations. One of the trouble I always have in my tracks, I get very attached to all of the different variations, but I also know I've listened to them so many times, I expect them. So I'm just interested in hearing perspectives from fresh ears.
What is your opinion of the arrangement so far?
Um, I mean, I enjoy it. Well, I enjoy the story that I am trying to tell with the evolution of the different sections, but I also think that it might be like a little too changing it up. Um, and also it might be more functional if it like had more of a bit that was obviously the main groove as opposed to having a different groove, like a different kind of predominantly different bass from the end and the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So the way I see it is, as an intro, you sort of establish a main groove, and the main groove I would say is something like this, right? Like I'll turn it down a little bit, like this. Like, I guess, if I would sort of like listen to the track, or like if I would be DJing and I'd be like, oh, I want to play Tove's track, probably this is kind of the loop I have in my head of like, okay, yeah, that's what his track was, sounding like, right? And so this main groove is obviously, when you sort of go on a journey like you do in your tracks, you want to sort of depart as soon as possible, right? And so what happens basically in the track is that, you sort of like go on this completely sort of different journey that sort of starts focusing more about the bass line in certain sections. Then there's all these other kind of like ad libs that come on the top and that are variations on this particular theme, which is great. I love that part. There's like this section that I really like, where that riff sort of really takes off and sort of starts filtering like crazy. Then there's a section where the pads come back, but they also do all kinds of different stuff. And so it goes like on this, massive journey into the unknown, right? And I think I really like that. And I don't mind, that it's sort of kind of out there a little bit. But it's really important, I think, to sometimes also establish where it all sort of started, right? Because otherwise what you get is kind of like a track that sort of meanders. And it's very hard to sort of like lock back into the original groove if there's constant sort of like changes, right? So I think the two things that you could do to maybe establish that without having to discard a lot of the variations, which all are, cool in itself, I think, is to sort of find that main groove and sort of repeat that at a certain juncture, basically. So, you go on this sort of tangent, and then after you've gone on that particular tangent, then you sort of reestablish by that main groove again, so to play the main groove again, and then you can sort of add more variations to it. But the other thing I also wanted to say is like you need to maybe make more clear what that main groove is in the beginning, so that people immediately know like, okay, this is what I'm locking into, and now we're going journeying, right? And so you could do that, for example, in this case, you have this sort of intro, and you build it up with the bass line and this like sort of little twinkly sound, right? But I think at this point where that sort of second theme comes in, the sort of do, the one that you're later sort of aciding out, maybe you need to like do like a tiny little breakdown just to sort of emphasize that now this sound is what the whole track is going to be about. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, like instead of just dropping in and then sort of like adding it as if it were kind of an extra ad lib or a little variation, maybe here, like for example, just drop the beats out or drop the beats and the bass out, and then just have that little din 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 din, and then drop everything back in so people know like okay, this is what the track is about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So this section. Like if we know that this is the main groove, everything else becomes sort of, you can sort of like reduce everything to that main groove in the rest of the track. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It's like a way to signal to the listener, oh, you should pay attention to this bit. This isn't just
exactly
like an incidental. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess a critique I would have of myself is that the version of that that's introduced is like slightly different from where it goes for the main rest of the track.
Yeah.
And I guess a sort of meta thing that I'm trying to work on with my songwriting is I feel like in part the way that my tracks kind of are always constantly changing and I have a hard time making a track that sits still is just like a reflection of like an element of of like my psyche in some way. And so I'm trying to like find a way to fit that to, making tracks that are more readable. So these were really helpful things, helpful like tools to add.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you did a track for the compilation, and it was another sort of journey track, right? And I think the journey is actually really interesting. The point is that if you sort of if you just sort of produce the journey, but there are no sort of points where listeners can lock into a groove or to a main idea, then the journey just becomes kind of like floating and no one can really remember what the track was about. You know what I mean? And so
Story of my
it's
life.
not like, yeah, it's like, like what Scott says, you have to have a main character. Like if there's no main character, it's just atmospheres, And so, that main groove is really important. And like, I'm not trying to sort of simplify the track because I don't think it needs simplifying at all. Like I do like sort of, it going on this sort of tangent and sort of filtering in and out and doesn't do all this crazy stuff with bass, like that's all good, but you just need to sort of lock it back in after a while so that it has like a resolve almost, where you have like you put like a proposition, then you go and explain everything and then the resolve, right? And the conclusion, I guess, of the track, right?
Yeah.
So maybe see it like Frodo goes back to the yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he went to Mordor, right? Like on the way back, you need to know, like, okay, we're back in the forest. That kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? Like,
yeah, that does. And I was thinking about like the return section is where that like bass, the distorted bass part happens in the second part. So maybe throwing a bit of like the opening arpeggios back there would help have that more of a return feel. But yeah. I'll play with that. I'll play with a few of those different approaches.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that sort of crazy sort of bass edit, you repeat that a couple times, I think, in the track. Like, I think it's like here, like 3:30, and then it happens again around like almost again to like 4 minutes or whatever. And you could, for example, say like maybe I'll just do that once or twice, and then I'll return to just the average, the bass line that is in the main groove, for example, to sort of lock back into the original section. You know what I mean? So that could be something like you have to sort of figure out the way, like, or figure out the exact time of where you're going to be doing that. But I think, like at the end, there's a couple things that you repeat over and over again. And so you could just sort of say like, okay, maybe I'll just do half of these and then log back in, Because now, like the way I listen to it now, it's really only the outro where I'm like, oh, now I'm back. Right? Like this.
Yeah.
And this yeah, that feeling, not this necessarily this particular bit, but that feeling needs to happen somewhere earlier in the track, like maybe here, like 3:35 or something like that.
That's a super helpful way to think about it for me. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone.
Nice Lord of the Rings analogy in this. Okay. Great track, and I'm sure you can figure this out for sure. All right. Let's go to, let me see, Jay. Oops. All right, here we go. All right. Nice stuff. Yeah, like this is like far in deep into autumn vibes. Jay, tell me about this.
I don't know where to start. I was fighting a lot of tracks that had taken me like days to put together that I wasn't really happy with, and I felt like I was plateauing a bit. And it's one of those things like someone tells you to go in a certain direction or listen to someone. For me, someone told me to go listen to Paradox's Wax Breaks, which is like a pressing of a bunch of breaks that he put together. So I got a copy of that, ripped some breaks from it, and just tried to work on like one a day kind of thing and just ignore me trying to make like a track and do that. And then this was the first break I got out of that.
Nice. Yeah, sound design is great. Like you know, all the bass stuff is super nice. If Paradox has been touching the breaks, then you know that you're in the right spot. You know, I think as far as the track, there was a couple things that I was thinking about to make it better. At least I think we could make it better. One of the things that Scott already said was like, you know, there needs to be kind of a point again, you know, where you sort of lock into the main sort of beat, you know, and there's loads and loads of like breakdowns and stuff happening, and which is great, and it sort of like gives you that sort of feeling that there's like sort of new energy sort of being added to the track over and over again, which makes it feel like a very intense listen, you know. But at the same time, there's also that one point where you're like, okay, now I just want to be on the dance floor, head nodding, and sort of like getting into it, right? And so there needs to be a sort of section in the middle, I suppose, where you're able to do that without sort of being sort of taken out of the beat every single time. You know, that sort of like almost stops people from dancing, you know?
Yeah.
So I think like this section that I sort of highlighted here, let me see. Like if this was sort of on loop for a bit, I think that's kind of like the track with the bass line, but it's also just grooving, right? Right, like if you would sort of loop that particular section, that could be sort of your main track. So
Okay.
after all the sort of fanfare of, you know, building up, you know, sort of presenting those sounds, you know, putting that massive bass line in the track and sort of introducing the beat, there needs to be that sort of like main section, right? So suppose, you know, very, very roughly, if we would sort of like loop this section like twice or whatever. So, you know, for example, let me see, here in the middle somewhere, like that. So introduce the track or introduce the sounds with an intro, drop, do that sort of breakdown thing once or twice. And then eventually in the middle of the track settle into that sort of main groove, right? And then what happens is that because you have that sort of main section where it's just beats and bass line, that also sort of like cleanse the palette a little bit, so that once you sort of do another one of those sort of massive breakdowns where you introduce all these sci-fi sounds and stuff, it'll feel fresher because, you know, we've sort of been locked into this groove for a little while, right? And then when that sort of pad comes in, you're just more, it feels fresher than it is when you have it arranged the way you did, you know? So I think that might be like a good way to sort of build a middle section and then, you know, sort of sprinkle those kind of breakdown-y type things more towards the end than towards the beginning, rather than sort of having it all over the track, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's what was bugging me the most. Like I felt like I was trying to do too much,
Yeah.
and there's a lot
Yeah.
of active listening and not a lot of just kind of sitting there listening back and locking in a bit. So that was exactly
Yeah.
what I wanted to do with it. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. But I think, and another thing I was going to say that what also would be a nice way to maybe rework the intro a little bit is to just introduce these kind of sci-fi pad type sounds, but also give it like some sort of sense of rhythm, so that people like subconsciously can also lock into the BPM already. Because obviously it's like a nice surprise to see that it sort of goes off at like 175 or whatever. But
168,
you
I
know,
think.
if you, for example, this track that I had to think of immediately called "Extraterrestrial" by Genotype.
That I was
you know that
talking
one?
to Alex about this track, and I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I literally set on that track, and this has been the biggest influence for my production
Exactly.
so far.
So basically, when I heard this, that was the first thing I thought about, because like that track is kind of like a drum and bass classic, I would say, like in this particular style for sure.
For sure,
But
absolutely.
it starts with just like a 16th hi-hat with these sort of like creeping sort of pad sound. So it just goes, you know, and it just has that, and it just gives you like a little bit of it sort of builds tension because you have those sounds, but it also builds rhythm, even though there's no beats yet, right? And so that sort of, it sort of brings you into the mindset of that sort of 175. And so once the beat drops, you're kind of like already locked into the groove, even though you've not heard the beats yet. You know what I mean? And so that could be a really fun way to sort of shape the intro a little bit more. So just sculpting those sounds, and then sort of having just like a tiny little, it could also be like just a minor percussive element. It doesn't have to be on the 16th or whatever, but just something so that people can feel like, oh, we are in this BPM ballpark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Is the length of the intro, would you say, could be extended with that?
I think so. I mean, you know, it's so massive. Like the track is such a, like, you know, thunderous drop. Like it needs tension, right? Like if you would just sort of drop it from 0 seconds onwards, you know, it would actually not have as much impact as when you have a longer intro that really builds towards it. You know, it's all about that tension, right? So and that's also like actually the Genotype example. I would say that intro is really long. Like you know, that's almost 2 minutes of just tension build, and then when the drop is just so ridiculous, you know. I don't know if you can go that far in this, but I would definitely sort of make it a little bit longer, just to just sort of build more tension for that big drop, you know.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, well done. I mean, sounds amazing. I think yeah, maybe once you have the sort of arrangement down a little bit more, like when it's sort of fine tuned, maybe there's some stuff on the mixdown side of things, but I think you're already you know, in the ballpark. But you can see like those big blocks of sort of lower bass in the WAV file. So you know, maybe that needs to be sort of toned down. It's slightly, just to sort of get like a little bit of a fresher mix. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, well done, great track.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you
Nice.
for the comments, everyone.
Cool. Great to hear like some proper noise in the house. Let's go to, let me see, Ball's track. All right. All right, here we go. Too short, I feel like. So much happening in the track. I wish it was a minute longer. Bal, tell me about this.
Can you hear me? First
Yes.
Cool. Well, I've always been afraid to make four on the floor music. Like with this alias, I haven't released a single four on the floor because I'm somehow afraid of it. So now I'm trying to be a bit more brave in that regard. And the idea behind is that I think the story is I played with a really good producer called Polychain in Vienna once, and she uses a lot of like vocoder in her music to like modulated vocoders, and so I just started playing around with vocoders, and basically the whole track is like apart from these like stab pads, like the twisting weird things are all like Ableton vocoder modulated heavily.
Yeah. Nice. It was kind of cool because I was sort of hoping for a sort of respite, basically, where there's so much sort of development in the track, and stuff changes pretty much every 4 bars almost. There's like so much sort of variation in the track. But for some reason, I think because maybe the track is quite minimal, and usually it sort of revolves around this sort of development of these different stabs. It never really feels like there's too much going on, even though there is a shitload going on, right? Like even this sort of section towards the end, there's like a sort of short breakdown, and then you sort of come back to the core sort of groove with that sort of stab, but immediately you take off again. And I really thought this section was kind of interesting. This is constantly like sort of something that adds on the top of the thing that came before it, right? And I don't know, like I really like that, and I think it works in this track because all the sounds are kind of in the same family, right? Like all those stabs are kind of like kind of edgy, and they have that sort of vocodery kind of sound, or like FM synth type of sound, and so it never really bothers me that much that there is so much going on. Whereas in like some of the stuff that we listened to before, you go on a journey, but then it's very hard to sort of re-establish what the sort of original groove of the track is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I fall into that a lot. So I've been consciously trying to move towards less elements and like keeping the core groove centered somehow.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's still a lot going on. So maybe, by listening to the track so much, I tend to switch things up too quickly.
Yeah.
But,
That's
I appreciate
definitely...
you saying that there's not too much going on, because that's what I'm fighting with constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because towards the end you just have a straight sort of bass and drums section, this one. And that section is actually really cool to maybe just use to sort of like add like little breaks in the rest of the track, right? Like every time you feel like you're sort of developing too quick, too much is sort of adding on the top, it would be really nice to just have like one of these like little tools, this little sort of 8 bars or whatever, to just sort of give people like a slight breather, if you will, before you start developing again, right? And so that could be maybe something to do. So that's a section at 4:52. To maybe just take that little bit and sort of see where in the track you feel like you're journeying a little bit too quick, and then sort of just insert that section there, and sort of see how that sort of changes the pacing of the track. I mean, obviously it's going to sound a bit wonky in the beginning because you just copy paste stuff, But it's more about like if the pacing of that feels right, and then if it does, then you can always find like some sort of transitioning sound or some sort of like switch to get to that section, you know. So but just sort of see if maybe just by inserting that here and there, maybe once or twice in the track, how that sort of changes that feeling of constant development and of constant sort of piling onto each other of elements, you know. So but I mean, don't see it as making the track sort of like more stale, but see it as more hypnotic, because that particular section also, that sort of constant repetitive part will also make the rest of the track feel more hypnotic, right? So I think that could be a good shout maybe in this.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Do you
But
think
yeah, the rest sounds great.
Okay.
Bass
Do you
could be
think the
heavier.
end part loses steam?
What's
Now
that?
listening to it, do you think the end sort of couple 16, 32 bars lose steam? It felt like, you know, I've been repeating the same ideas forever.
Well, I mean, you feel like you're repeating the ideas forever, but for someone that listens to it for the first time, there's a lot, you know, which is also probably why I felt like when it was over, that there might easily be another minute added to it, you know, just to sort of get more of that sort of hypnotic kind of feel to it. And maybe also if I would play it somewhere, you know, it'd be really nice to just have like a more longer stretched out section where, you know, people can really sort of get into that particular melody or that particular sort of groove, you know. Yeah. I don't think it runs out of steam at all. So yeah, nice. Hope that helps a little bit, but great work. I really like it.
Yeah, it does help a lot. Thanks
Cool.
very much.
All right, let's go to Ollie is here, right? Let me make this one a little bit louder as well. There. All right, let's take a listen. I think Ollie is not here anymore because he was in the call earlier. Maybe he thought his track wasn't going to be featured, or maybe he had to go. Let me move to the next one because otherwise we'll be listening to a track and there's no one to give feedback to. And then we'll just sort of do this one next week. Let me go to Alban's track then. Told you it's one of those days. All right, Alban. Yes, alligator. All right, let's listen to Alban's track. Here we go. Oops. So far, so good. Let me go really quick back to the original drop. I just want to listen to it again. And then the second drop. Okay. Alban, what's up?
Hi there.
Hi.
Yeah, that's fun because I sent you like 2 tracks, like one really like more mainstream UK garage with the R&B sample,
Yep.
and you choose violence.
Yes.
Whoa. I don't know why I don't get any more battery in my Mac. I hope it's not gonna fall down battery because it's charged. I don't know why. It doesn't charge, but okay. Let's hope. But yeah, this is definitely like the most violent track I've ever done, which is like not something I want to promote in my life, violence, but it exists. So so let's get it to the maximum point,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't very satisfied with the sample, because it's a very classic sample, but now that it's there, like I think I'm gonna let it be as it is. I can hear like some troubles in the mix, like I can't get the bass. I don't manage to get the bass like cutting through.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is something I want to work on. Plus, I don't know what you feel about the breakdown, like the way it's going. I don't know if it works, and for the rest, maybe the length. If I can have the length for the different parts, like if you feel it's good or not, I will be like curious.
Yeah.
Plus the intro, it's kind of messy at the moment, so yeah.
I mean, I like the messiness. It's mostly because of that sample, the sort of hip hop sample, I guess. I think the sample's really loud, and so probably that also makes the rest feel a little bit messier. Maybe not so much in the intro, but for example, in the sort of lead to the breakdown, where you also sort of have a lot of beat edits and things like that on top of that hip hop sample, it just becomes a little bit sort of cluttered, this section here. Right? Like maybe one of the elements needs to either be removed or turned down, or maybe you have to make that section without bass or something like that, right? Like it feels like, because that sample just has every sort of frequency that you need in it. It's like from a different track, right? So to add more frequency and more things to it, it's probably almost always going to be kind of cluttered, So
definitely.
The other thing you could do is maybe like high pass it or something, or like, do something that sort of gives you the same low end as in the rest of the track. and just have that sort of hip hop sample filtered over the top or something like that. Make it a little bit
Yeah.
lighter, you know. So that could be a solution, but I think overall also just turn down the volume of that sample, because even
Yeah.
in the WAV file you can see that it sort of peaks wherever those sort of guitar stabs are sort of in the sample, right? So that
True.
already almost tells me that either it's too loud or you need to limit it a little bit. Also, the main break is obviously quite messy as is. There's a lot of noise in it and stuff, so it's just hard to get that right, you know. And it's going to take a little bit of tweaking and sort of seeing if you can sort of manage to fit all the bass underneath it without it feeling like a total mess, you know. But that's just the risk of using these kind of breaks, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's manageable. I mean, there's other tracks that use these similar breaks and they can do it, so I'm sure you can do it too, you know. I think the pacing of the track is really good. Like, I really love the arrangement basically all the way up to that second drop. I just wonder if you need to do something else on that second drop because you build towards it and you create so much expectation that I wonder if this is enough, you know. And I mean, it's good, like it's fine so the way it is, but it could be better, I think. And
maybe what kind of thing are you, I don't know, would you love to hear, like some kind of changes, like a new break or a new sample, or maybe introduce the main sample within that drop?
I really want you to figure it out, but okay. So when I was sort of listening to the first drop and the second drop, because this is what it's about, right? So the first drop is is this section, right? It's really one bass note and just breaks, right? And then these sort of like dark sounds over the top. So you want to find some sort of contrast between this and what happens on the second drop. And on the second drop, you kind of start the exact same way. Just a little bit louder, right? And then at the end of all those bars, there is like a crazy edit or something like that. I mean, like if you listen to like a lot of old Dillinger tracks, for example, he does something super simple, which is you take the first drop and then you reverse everything, and sort of where the bass line goes up at the end of the bar. On the second drop, he starts with the higher note and then goes down. Like, it's so dumb, but it works every single time. And so this could be maybe a way to like experiment a little bit and see what happens. Like, for example, on the second drop, suppose that you would not start with that sort of one bass note and that break, but you would start with the edit, right? Like this.
Oh yeah.
Or something like that, right? So you sort of just reverse the idea so that it almost feels like it's a new track, even though all the elements are exactly the same. You know?
I got it.
But you have to like play around with it a little bit, see if you find an edit that sort of flows nice enough to sort of like punch people in the face and then sort of revert to the old break or something like that. Or maybe, you know, instead of that one bass note in the beginning of the bar, maybe you build like a little melody, like boom, 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 or something, and then go into complete tear out mode or something like that, you know?
You mean a melody like with a different emotion?
No, just like a melody with the bass line, like play different notes with the bass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's got to be something like that, like something needs to contrast with that first break, right? Like with the first drop. That's the trick, I think.
Okay, that's really interesting, and I can hear it at the moment.
Yeah.
Just are you feeling the halftime break on the breakdown.
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering about it.
I mean, it's all the things in the track are older tropes, right?
Yeah.
But that's fine, you know, like as long as you do it well, if you execute it well, I think it's worth doing, you know. Like I would play this in an instant, right? Like, and I mean, it reminds me of loads of really old things, but you know, not every track has to reinvent the wheel, you know, in my opinion. Like if you do it well, right? Like if you try and copy it and it sucks, then obviously I don't want to hear it. But you know, if you sort of do something interesting with it in your style, then obviously it's good, you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, but yeah, you need to figure out the second drop. I think the rest, like the pacing of it is perfect. You just need, just that, and then figure out the mixing a little bit more.
Definitely.
Yeah. Piotr said, or B-boy style vocal sample.
Oh yeah.
B-Bridge does a sick job with it on his DB versus 45 King tune. Oh yeah, on Astrophonica. Yeah. I mean, if you study all the Dillinger, like older Dillinger tracks or Lemon D, or you know, you'll hear they all kind of do usually something very simple. But just by reversing it or flipping two samples, or you know, playing the bass line backwards, or like it's always like something super basic, but it works every single time, you know. So that would be good to sort of check out as inspiration.
That makes sense. I was listening to a lot of Dillinger at that time.
Sounds
so yeah.
like it. Yeah. So, all good. You know, like we always need more Dillinger in our lives, so it's all good. Good luck. I think I think you've got this you've got this in the bag. All right. Let me see. We have time for a few more, right? I'll play Brianna's track. Turn that up a little bit as well. All right. And then let me figure out what else we have time for. But let's start with Brianna. Here we go. Brianna,
Hello.
how are you? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, pretty tired after a long several weeks of gigs and festivals and stuff. It feels like every weekend for the last like 2 months, but at the same time, very inspired as well. This was started between 2 and 3 weeks ago. And yeah, I'm very happy I was able to make it on this call for my first work in progress call.
How is it listening to your tune on the call?
Strange, but good. I appreciate the comments and the feedback. Yeah, I don't know. I guess just to preface my sound and anything I've released so far, there tends to be a lot of genre overlap, but I tend to keep things pretty minimal. Like I gravitate a lot towards a generally minimal sound, and I think what I struggle with a lot is like listening back on my projects, on different days, and one day, being like, wow, this is so busy. I have too much going on. There are too many ideas at once. And then I'll listen again the next day and be like, this needs so much more. It's like, it's tough to find that balance. But yeah, this one is a fun one. I'm liking it so far. And it's exciting to share it. So thank you for playing it.
Where do you feel the track is at the moment? Like, do you feel that you're sort of near completion, or is it one of those days where you feel like a lot more needs to be added, or what's your vibe currently?
I'm thinking that it's closer to completion than not. Something that I struggle with too sometimes with my projects is like, I have a lot of bass and like mid-range stuff going on a lot, and sometimes I struggle with like, high-end melody or like really high and like little accents and things like that. So I did work on it last night and added a bit more just to have it a little more well-rounded. There's like some like shimmery, like almost chimes going on in the back. And yeah, I don't know. I think like the general concept is here. Like this definitely is the track. But I could keep nitpicking it forever and ever. So I don't know. It's getting there for sure. It's almost done, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Let's I'm gonna go skip through it.
Okay.
And we'll sort of talk our way through the arrangement, right? So track starts. Sort of introducing the beat. And there's this kind of like crazy, like, I don't even know what it is exactly, but it's kind of like a Data-esque sound that sort of like becomes kind of a riff, which is really cool, I think. This one.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite pieces of the track.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where the track starts rolling, right? Like with that sort of sound and then the sort of hi-hats that come in. Then there is like a slight breakdown, and then you bring in this kind of like really crazy like bass riff that sort of appears throughout the track in several ways. But I really like that one as well. And so I think the two parts that you sort of that you can sort of use to sort of lock the rest of the arrangement in is that bass section and that sort of data, modem sound, if you want to call it that, right? And I think what happens is that sort of, obviously there's loads and loads of other elements, and it kind of starts meandering a little bit. And sort of that bass thing comes back once every while, but it's usually in kind of unexpected moments, I think.
Yeah.
And that data sound is kind of like absent throughout the rest of the track, like at least not the sort of groovy section of it,
Yeah.
And I think in order to sort of maybe make the arrangement a little bit better, I think would be to maybe use these two like loops to sort of center the rest of the track around and sort of add on top of those things rather than sort of have them play one after another, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, those two things are definitely like the main pieces, I would say, of the track. And it was I had these ideas and I was kind of like struggling to like make them fit together. I'll say as well, just for context, that like I don't know, this is like a habitual thing that I keep doing with my tracks. Like I tend to like for the main drop or like the first main drop or something like that, I tend to really want to like strip back a lot and almost do like a delayed drop or like kind of like a few like a teaser drop into a drop. Like it's just something that I keep doing for some reason. But so I think that happens, but I do agree that like I don't know, there's a little bit too much of a disconnect that happens, where those two main pieces are not working together. It's like another 30 seconds to a minute before they collide together again. So yeah, it's just toying around.
Yeah, maybe see it more as like you need like a little bit of a bed, right, where you have some drums, you need some sort of bass element, and you need something that twinkles on the top, right? Like those are kind of the three sort of elements that you're looking for in the track. And you want to sort of pick a bass element that you could potentially hear all throughout the track. That doesn't mean that you can't change it or like pull it out somewhere, or maybe because the notes kind of like sort of fall from the sky a little bit, so you could, for example, play with that a little bit where you sort of put big reverb on one of the notes here and there, or maybe pull one of the notes out once every while so you get like a weird, like, are we still listening to the bass line? Oh, there it is again, that kind of feel. But it's just sort of nicer to sort of toy around with that bass line, but it always sort of being ever present. And then all those other sounds that you have that are also super interesting can then just sort of live on the top of that, Because once you're sort of locked into like, oh, this is my bass line, this is my beat, this is my percussion, you're much more susceptible to any weird stuff that happens on the top, while if you would sort of like turn those into like different sections one after another, it's a lot of work for the listener to sort of like switch constantly between all these different sections, you know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure.
So it's more like that the fact that the main groove is all throughout the track doesn't make the track boring. It just sort of gives it that bed that you can then use to sort of experiment over, you know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I really enjoy like I enjoy a lot of the individual sounds that are going on in this track. It's just, I think, making it all a little more cohesive. And then, just making a bit more sense. Cause I think right now listening to my track, like someone would probably have to listen to the whole thing to understand like how it starts and where it goes, versus like hearing this mixed in a set or something. I feel like it would be difficult to know what the track is about when it's mixed halfway through. It's just a little more cohesion, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's also part of the sound. I feel like, you know, like a lot of the sort of minimal, like proper sort of minimal stuff is very much like this sort of meditative state, right? Where there's just a beat and one hi-hat, and then the rest of it like sort of falls at random places almost, you know. That's also like the sort of sound, I think. But you do need like a certain groove that people lock into before you can do all those things, right? And so so I think it needs maybe a little bit more cohesion, so that, you know, we know what the bed is, and then once we know that, you can actually do crazier stuff on the top, because you have us locked in already, you know what I mean? So it will take us less time and less sort of adjustment to sort of hear new stuff and sort of process it, you know?
Yep.
So, but I think, I mean, like sound wise, I would not necessarily try and look for a lot more. I would just sort of try and maybe see if you can organize the first couple of minutes in a different way, to sort of, like use that sort of main groove and then sort of sprinkle the sounds on the top.
That makes sense. I agree. Yeah. Thank you so much for the feedback. I'm really glad I could present this today. So, yeah, and very, very validating, because these are kind of all things that I had kind of already thought. So I'm excited to like rearrange this a little bit.
Just weren't ready to do them yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let me. I'm curious to hear what comes after. Like,
Excellent.
you know, there's definitely there's something here, and it's just a matter of reorganizing it a little bit, I think.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Cool. All right. And welcome to the work in progress group now.
And thank you so much. Yeah, very exciting.
Cool. Let's go to, we can do two more. So I'll do Tancredi and then Cassandra. And then I'm moving the rest to the next session. Let me see. Okay, let's play Tancredi's track. Here we go.
Hey, how's it going? I can't hear you, Martin, for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh, sorry. Now?
Yeah.
Okay, better.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I was saying, gorgeous sound design.
Thank you.
And yeah, just great piece. Tell me about this. How did it come to be, and why did you send it into the work in progress?
Yeah, so I've put a lot of time in like building a sound palette for this. There's a lot of channels, a lot of elements, and but I'm not sure the track is telling like a coherent story. Like it's going from ambient and detailed to like rhythmic sections to like distorted, saturated drums with ambient pads to the more ambient ending. So it kind of feels like there's still a continuation or a thread that needs to be found. But also I've listened to it so much, like I kind of biased at this point. It would be nice to have your opinion. Maybe it's about like prioritizing a specific section and like abandoning other ideas, or yeah, just generally trying to find a balance. But at the same time, I like the boldness of just, going from like ambient to more like rhythmic, and just like without really questioning myself. Because in the creative process, there was really a moment where I was like super into it and like adding a lot of ideas and structuring pretty fast. And then there was then a moment where I got stuck, and then it feels like I'm going back to the project. I'm tweaking some elements, but it's not satisfying to the point where I feel like it's done.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously with tracks that fall kind of like outside of the sort of dance floor, dance music realm. There is more freedom too, right? And so maybe, if you're used to sort of producing a certain type of music, you always want to mold every single idea into that sort of same structure, right? And so maybe what you're looking for, because you have kind of like these three sections, roughly, I guess, sort of where I sort of sliced them on screen as well, right? My sort of studio head would say we need to like find what the main groove is and sort of like repeat that or get back to that, so that you have like a sort of logical arrangement that makes sense, but at the same time some tracks just write themselves basically. And you're just sort of experimenting, and you feel like you go left somewhere and you go right somewhere, and yes, you end up somewhere completely different than where you started. But if that's just the journey of the track, then that is the journey of the track, right? And so I think that's sometimes the hard part, is to not try and sort of turn everything into this sort of structure that 80% of all dance music fits into, but to just sort of let it breathe and just let it do whatever it needs to do, right? When I was sort of listening to it, I felt that I assumed this first section was more of an intro that would sort of lead to something. And for me, there was a really sort of satisfying moment when the sort of bass line came in with this sort of more beat-oriented section right here. That's just, a great piece. Like that could be the whole track, right? And by sort of like adding sounds to that, and maybe taking some stuff out, or alternating bass line, or do some beat edits, you'd have an amazing track. But that's not where this track is going at all.
Exactly.
Because after that, all these sort of melodic elements come in, and then it turns into this sort of distorted bass thing. Maybe what you could do to sort of create a little bit more cohesion, I suppose, is maybe copy this beat that we just listened to, and sort of maybe make that distorted one really light, and then sort of copy the original beat on top of that, like this. And then, have those beautiful sort of pads floating over the top. That could maybe pull these two sections together a little bit, That could be a choice, but at the same time, I also kind of like this journey, where it just goes somewhere else. Like at the end, this part is like amazing. Like, that's not what I was thinking when I heard this, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's more up to you. Like, there are.
It feels like I've given like what I could to it, like I kind of want to move on.
Yeah, I mean, I would, as a track, as it stands right now, it's already an amazing track. I wonder if, for example, you would sort of, make it more cohesive with the beats, for example, and sort of turn that second section more into sort of the main section. Maybe it would just become more ordinary, which is not what you want. So, I would listen to it a few times and, feel out the pacing, see if you feel like all the elements that come in, if the journey feels right to you. Maybe just leave as is, and just, if you feel like you need to do something more cohesive or more dance floory, then just make a new track,
Yeah,
and
like
sort
a
of do it there.
reinterpretation, or like a remix of it.
Exactly. Like you could just take the beat and just make something new out of it. There's plenty of material here to turn into a new track as well. But I think this as a journey and as a sort of, arrangement where, it just goes somewhere in another place, I think is really nice. So, I think, I would not touch it, I think.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Want to see what happens next? Like what the follow-up track sounds like. So, all right. Let me go to last track for the day, and then the rest of the tracks I will move to the next session. If you can't make the next session, then I can always just provide feedback by email. Just let me know, or just hit me up on Discord real quick with the track name, and then I can sort you out. Let's listen to Cassandra's track as our last one for today. All right, here we go.
Your big brown eye tells me you won't be here for a while, and I know that it takes things like, but you say everything you heard. So wish I would feel no hope when it's happening. It happened again. Guess I can't complain, for I can't do the same thing you said on Henry Street. Hey, wow, baby, can't do the same thing you said on Henry Street. I can't complain, for I choose to be safe. Wow. Can't do the same thing you said on Henry Street. Hey. Can't do the same thing you said on Henry Street.
Nice. How are you?
I feel like I send like very rough drafts that I don't have time to like clean up.
Mm-hmm.
So I will definitely do that next time. But I feel like this rough draft has kind of, I don't know, I like the vibe. I think obviously like vocal wise, like definitely re-recording and like mixing it and compression and all that. I just didn't really do any of that. And then I didn't finish like the outro part, but yeah. But yeah, I guess like next steps, I'm a little, I don't really know where to go in terms of next steps, like with the sounds, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And if like the sounds are enough, and yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Well, first of all, vibes are there, right?
Yeah.
The song is there. Yeah, maybe there will be like stuff with vocals, you always re-record stuff towards the end usually, right? So
exactly, yeah.
So the idea of just having the song down, I think, is more important than whatever the hell it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
So I think the way forward now would be to so the way I would do it from now onwards would be to focus on the music and sort of get all the music to sort of sit in a nice place for yourself, so that over the top you can then sort of record the vocal as kind of like a final version, you know. And so in this case you can just sort of use your own vocals as the rough draft. You know, just sort of turn them down a little bit, or like sort of chop off some of the sort of higher, like super loud bits, you know, just to sort of like equalize them a little bit more. And then sort of try and sort of mix the music into it, because obviously the music in most sections here is really quiet, you know, where you're sort of obviously just sort of jamming over the top. But yeah, like, you know, you have a kick drum, you have a bass line, there is like a couple really cool melodic elements, you know, with the little piano bits. So once those sort of are coming up a little bit, you probably get a better sense of where the track is musically. And they'll sort of probably also make it a lot easier to record the final vocal over the top, you know. So but I really like some of the like little percussive elements that you have that sort of make it kind of breakbeaty. I don't know if I can quickly find some of these bits. Let me see. This part.
Can't do the same thing. You sat on and read the same.
And it's nice with the kick drum on the top as well. That's, I think, here. So.
It's so loud.
Yeah, it's really loud. But and that, you know, and that piano like fills that sort of bar up really nicely, you know. So I would say just maybe even just mute the vocal for a little bit, and then sort of mix everything kind of where you feel like it's sitting in the right place, like loudness wise, for all the elements. And then, you know, that will sort of give you a better bed to then record another take, to sort of see where you're at with the vocal, you know. So but I think I quite like the structure, you know, with the sort of like long intro, and then sort of kick drum comes in, basically just kick drum and bass, and then these sort of percussive like little breakbeat things come in, then the pianos like fade in and sort of like add extra mood to the vocal. Like the story is pretty much there, I think, you know. So it's great. I want to hear what this sounds like when it's finished, you know.
Yes.
So but even like cool. You know, maybe like approach it as if you had to make an instrumental and just mix that,
right,
you know. And then once you have that, then that will give you the sort of backing track that you need to record a proper vocal over the top.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the right approach.
Okay.
I think. I'm not a singer, but.
I think so. I think, it's funny because when I do have like a melody or something, like just like the words come out and I have to like get them down or I'll forget. But I know some people like to do everything with the music and then record after, but I feel like just for like my own ADHD, like I need to just put it on there somewhere. But I do like the idea of like muting it and then like kind of like redoing everything afterwards. Or like
I would do that, because you want to have like the levels of all the other elements of all the music to sort of be like in the right pocket, more or less. Yeah. Because then when you sort of start recording over it, you can see where the accents will be with your voice, you know, and it'll sort of make more sense, I think, to re-record once the sort of backing track is more in a better shape, you know. Yeah. So, and as far as sort of, you know, vocal, you could do like a line. You could maybe, you know, do some harmony stuff in certain well, you already had that in the last section, right? Yeah, but you could do like a couple more, like, you know, to sort of like give it more depth, or, but you know, I'm sure you know what to do.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, it's very like rough stuff. But thank you.
But I heard rough stuff last time, and then I never heard the finished version.
I know. That one's like basically. I'll send you that one because that one's definitely polished up a lot more now.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great work. Like I said, I will take care of all the other tracks next week. Hopefully, I'll see you there as well. If you can't make it next week, do let me know, and then we'll just do like an email feedback situation, which is also no problem. Thanks so much for joining. I will see you next week. Tuesday is deeper dive, and then Thursday more work in progress action. All right. Happy fall. Bye.